Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all doing amazing today. In this video, we're diving into the latest updates about Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos. You don't want to miss this. So make sure to stay tuned till the end, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Kelly Ripa had always been the person who kept smiling, even when exhaustion tugged at her edges. From her early days on television to the bright lights of Live with Kelly and Mark, she had mastered the art of shining through whatever storms life brought. But nothing in her decades of live television, red carpets, magazine interviews, or public appearances had prepared her for the moment when her husband, Mark Consuelos, sat her down at the kitchen island one cool September morning and told her something she didn't want to hear. He looked healthy, strong, even, with his usual morning coffee in hand and that familiar quiet confidence in his eyes. Everything looked ordinary until he opened his mouth. "Kel," he began, voice unusually heavy, the doctor called. She froze with her spoon halfway to her mouth. The tone alone was enough. The breath she held tasted like fear. What did they say?" she asked quietly. And then came the words that felt like someone had pulled the floor out from beneath her. Nothing life-ending, nothing irreversible, but serious. A warning, a wake-up call. A condition that, left ignored, could change everything about their future. Mark was strong, but even he couldn't hide the tremor in his hand. The world did not fall apart in one violent crash, it simply shifted. And suddenly, Kelly realized that no amount of television polish could shield her family from the reality of human fragility. Chapter 1. Holding it together. Kelly went to work that morning because that was what she did. The world didn't pause for personal pain, not when cameras rolled, not when millions watched, not when being fine was part of the job. Mark went with her, as he always did, and the familiar set lights washed over them both. Rian, the producer, whispered countdown cues. Stagehands adjusted angles. The audience applauded with cheerful innocence. Nobody knew. The show began. Kelly smiled, she joked, she kept the energy up. But beneath the makeup and professional glow, her chest felt tight, like every breath had to fight its way out. During the commercial break, she finally allowed herself a moment, only one. She folded into her chair and stared at the ring on her finger. She felt Mark place his hand over hers. Warm, reassuring, still here. His voice was barely a whisper. "We're going to be okay." Her eyes stung, but her smile didn't waver. They were professionals, but they were also husband and wife, standing at the edge of something unfamiliar. Something that didn't come with cue cards or retakes. Chapter 2. When cameras stopped rolling. When they got home, the kids noticed immediately. Their oldest, Michael, had inherited his father's instinct for reading a room. "What happened?" he asked. Kelly wanted to protect them, to make the kind of reassuring statement moms specialize in, but Mark shook his head gently. "No secrets," he said. So they sat around the living room and talked. It was quiet, heavy, honest. There were questions, some practical, some fearful, some unspoken entirely. When the conversation ended, the kids hugged their father tightly, as if contact itself could shield him. Later that night, Kelly went downstairs after the house had gone silent. She paced the kitchen, arms wrapped around herself, barefoot on the cold tile floor. The refrigerator hum was the only sound. She thought of every memory, meeting Mark on set, raising children in a whirlwind of career and early mornings, sharing holidays, sharing heartbreaks. Life had been good, so good that she sometimes forgot how delicate it all was. She stared up at the ceiling and whispered, "I'm not ready for this." Somewhere inside, she knew nobody ever was. Chapter 3. The moment it hit. Days passed. Doctors were contacted. Second opinions were scheduled. Diet and lifestyle changes were discussed. Mark tried to keep things light, but Kelly could see the tension in the corners of his eyes. The world outside remained loud and energetic. Talk shows, social media posts, interviews, fans, scripts, meetings, appearances. But at home, life felt quieter, more serious. Every small moment suddenly felt precious. On one particularly long evening, Kelly found herself sitting alone in the living room while Mark slept upstairs. The clock on the wall ticked steadily. She stared at a framed photo on the shelf, one from their early days. Young, laughing, bright-eyed, completely unaware of the struggles the future would bring. That's when the tears finally came. Not dramatic television tears, not the elegant, poised tears people cry in movies. Real ones, shoulders shaking, chest tightening, the kind that come from a fear that has nowhere else to go. She cried for the man she loved, for the vulnerability of human life, for the terrifying truth that strength sometimes isn't enough. She cried because this wasn't a story she could fix by smiling through it. And when she was finally too exhausted to cry anymore, she lay back on the couch and whispered, "I need help through this." Saying it out loud felt like the first real step. Chapter 4. A New Kind of Strength. Kelly wasn't the type to sit in sadness for long. It wasn't denial, it was resilience. The next morning, she woke up with swollen eyes but a steadier heart. If life had changed, then so would she. She researched everything about Mark's condition. She organized questions for doctors, put together notebooks filled with information, started meal planning, and even suggested changes in both of their daily routines. "You're not doing this alone," she told Mark firmly. "If you're changing your life, I'm changing mine with you." Mark looked at her for a long emotional moment. "That's why I married you," he finally said. Kelly smiled, small, tired, but real. There are moments in long marriages that redefine them. This was one of theirs. Chapter 5. Facing the Public. Eventually, word began to leak, not dramatic headlines, but subtle questions, hints, and speculation. People noticed Kelly looked thinner, Mark seemed quieter. Their energy, while still strong, had softened. Producers suggested they craft a statement before someone else crafted it for them. So one morning, before the live broadcast, Kelly and Mark stood backstage, holding hands. "You sure you want to say something?" Mark asked. She nodded. "For 30 years, she said, we've invited the world into our lives. It would feel dishonest to pretend nothing is happening just because we're scared." When the cameras rolled, she looked directly into the lens, heart pounding. And she spoke. Not in polished sentences, not in public relations safety language, but in honest words about fear, change, health, and love. She talked about Mark's diagnosis without details, because the specifics belonged to their family. But the emotions, the universal parts of struggle, partnership, and uncertainty, those were shared with everyone watching. Mark placed an arm around her shoulders while she spoke. When she finished, the audience applauded, some cried, and for the first time in weeks, Kelly felt lighter. Not because things were solved, but because she wasn't carrying the secret alone anymore. Chapter 6. The weeks that followed, life didn't magically return to normal. Hard days still came. Nights of worry still lingered. Doctor visits, follow-ups, and adjustments continued. But something beautiful began to grow in the cracks. Quiet morning walks instead of rushed coffee. Dinner together without phones. More thank yous and I love yous. Longer hugs. Deeper conversations. More appreciation for the ordinary. Even fans began sending letters, stories of their own loved ones, their own fears, their own resilience. Kelly read them, sometimes with tears in her eyes. It reminded her that she and Mark were not alone. Far from it. Chapter 7. The Healing Nobody Expected. One late evening, months after the diagnosis, Kelly and Mark sat in the backyard under string lights. The air was cool, and the city hummed softly in the distance. Mark looked healthier. Not perfect, not through the storm entirely, but stronger. "I didn't expect this part," he said quietly. "Which part?" she asked. "How something that scared me more than anything ended up giving me more time with you." Kelly leaned her head on his shoulder. "Maybe that's what struggles do," she whispered. "They don't just take, they reveal what matters." Mark chuckled softly. "You always were better at wisdom than me." Kelly shook her head. "No, I'm just finally listening." They sat there a long time, no phones, no cameras, no audience. Just two people who had weathered fear together and come out a little different, a little stronger, and a lot closer. Epilogue. A new beginning. Life would never be exactly the same as before, but that wasn't a bad thing. The crisis had carved out room for growth, for gratitude, for tenderness, for living intentionally instead of automatically. Kelly resumed her bright television presence, but viewers began noticing something different. Not fewer jokes, not less energy, just more heart, more pauses, more sincerity. Because once you understand how fragile time is, you stop wasting it. Mark took better care of himself. He slowed down, truly slowed, in a way he hadn't since he was young and immortal in his own mind. And Kelly? She found a new kind of strength, not the one that smiles through everything, but the one that admits fear, cries when necessary, and keeps moving anyway. For the first time in her life, Kelly realized that being strong didn't mean appearing untouched. It meant choosing love every day, even when life didn't follow the script. And she did. Every day after,